Good evening, crafters. Happy Tuesday. Time for another Learning Live here with the Papercrafters Workshop. Got Sheri here in the Whitby studio. We've got Matt on the comments. We are going to be having some fun, trying some different techniques tonight. And I've already had, I don't know if the lighting's gonna be, I've already had a very inky day. So this is just par for the course, and we're just gonna keep on getting inky.
Pancake Tuesday, that's
It
right.
is Pancake Tuesday. We should have had pancakes for dinner. Oh well, it's all good. We've got people tuning in tonight. Tonight we are going to be playing with embossing folders. Now, primarily what I am using is Spellbinders 2D embossing folders. I'll get my little mess out of the way here. Not mess, creative goodness, lots of possibilities. But I'm going to be focusing, like I said, mainly on 2D embossing folders. And these are still have a nice raised surface to them. A 3D folder, obviously, in many cases, you can do a lot of the same techniques that I'm going to share with you tonight on a 3D as you do on a 2D. However, I just happen to have more 2D folders here to play with. And with Spellbinders, I really do like this size. It's 5.5 by 8.5, so you could actually get 2 cards for the price of one with these different folders. There's a wide assortment. The ones that are going to work best with some of these techniques are ones that have kind of an all-over pattern. Maybe I'll get a piece of colored cardstock here just so you can see. Of course, I've been crafting all day and now can't find a single piece of colored cardstock. Here we go. See if that'll show up a little bit better. So these ones have an all-over pattern. They're not too small, not too dainty. So Spellbinders does have one that has a couple that has small polka dots or raindrops. You could try them with these techniques I'm going to share with you, but these kind of bigger patterns are probably a little bit better suited for what we're going to create with tonight.
You mean the cable knit sweater one wouldn't work?
The cable knit sweater one might work. I haven't tried that one. I don't have that one, but you just never know. And as with many of the techniques I share with you, it's just paper. If you want to see if something works, then try it out. Anyways.
Would these work with the Tim Holtz?
Would these work with the Tim Holtz ones? For the most part, yes. The ones that I would caution you, so again, and we'll get into this a little bit more. I'm already running out of space. The ones that I'm going to share with you are a little bit flatter. Some of the Tim Holtz ones, like I have this one here, and the one side is a little bit more textured, but this side here has a lot of pointy bits to it, as you probably won't be able to see it here on the camera. I would just worry about what that would do to your ink pad, whether the technique would work. The technique would probably work, but I think those are the ones that you would want to stay away from. And we'll come back to that in a second.
I say we haven't even shown the technique yet.
We haven't even shown the technique yet, so I can talk to that a little bit more as I'm demonstrating. And I think when I show you what I'm going to do on some of these techniques, some of those questions will come clear. While I've got it sitting here on my desk and before I put it away, right now I am storing my embossing folders in the 9x6 toolbox from Totally Tiffany. And I do like this one because these big guys do fit in horizontally, landscape-wise, but then I can put my smaller ones in portrait style and carry everything all in one bag. I think eventually I'm going to need to put some tab dividers in here just so I can find things easier, but this is what I'm using. Embossing folders is very tricky because there is no standard size. You know, I like the big ones here, but there are small ones, there are square ones, there are skinny ones. There are so many different kinds. It's hard to come up with a one solution fits all kind of storage solution. Now, the other thing I will say, and you guys have probably heard me say this before, um, your sandwich for embossing folder is really going to depend on what kind of folder you're using, as well as what machine you're using. So tonight I am using my Platinum 6 from Spellbinders, my workhorse, and I'm using the universal plate system, which makes it really, really easy because it gives you all the sandwiches right on the platform. But again, embossing folders are tricky because they do not have a standard thickness either. If you see the thickness between a Tim Holtz 3D and a Spellbinders 2D, there's a huge, huge, huge difference. So one thing that we do have as a resource, I think we have it on the website, but I will also see if I can find it and link it in the comments after the live, is Spellbinders has put together a cheat sheet of not all the different embossing folders, but a huge variety of different embossing folders, anywhere from, of course, Spellbinders to Sizzix to Tim Holtz to Stampin' Up, all those different ones. And it's got that sandwich for the Platinum 6 and for the Universal Plate System already figured out for you. But when in doubt, try it out. That's my mantra, my catchphrase for tonight. When in doubt, try it out. If you have to really push, if you have to get in there with both hands, both knees, and your left foot, you probably have too thick of a sandwich and you need to take something out. Nothing should be difficult to go through your machine, and you do not want to break your machine. You do not want to crack your plates. So if you're facing significant resistance, stop. That is my best advice for embossing folder and dies too. If you have to push it and work really hard, it's probably not going to go. The other thing I'm just going to share with you as I'm pulling everything out is underneath my Platinum 6, I have started using a silicone mat. This is a silicone mat from Ranger. And what this does is, I've got a pretty slick surface for my my desktop, as you guys saw in my craft room tour a few weeks ago. The silicone mat just helps me have something that the machine doesn't slip and slide and wiggle on. It keeps it nice and sturdy.
Your poor Platinum 6 looks very
my Platinum 6 is well loved. It's got little bits of tape all over it. It's got my label on it, and it's like a Rolex. It's or Timex. Is it Timex or Rolex? It takes a licking and keeps on ticking. Love, love, love my Platinum 6.
I'm just looking at it. It's got like nicks out of the side of it. It's pretty beat up.
Yep, but it still works. All right, enough yak. Let's do some craft. So the techniques I'm going to share with you tonight are involving ink, and I love doing inky techniques. So we're going to talk about some different ways that you can use inks along with your embossing folders to create some really, really fun backgrounds and patterns. Now, all of the inks I'm using tonight are water-based. Do not use pigment. Do not use StazOn. Do not use anything solvent-based. Stick with your water-based inks. This could be Distress, could be Distress Oxide. I'm going to use Pink Fresh tonight, but you can use Gina K. You probably could use Concord. I haven't tried that one yet. Hero Arts Reactive Inks, absolutely. You can use anything water-based is going to be successful with these techniques. Plus, it's going to be very, very easy to clean your embossing folders when you're done, because that's kind of the other half of this.
Yeah, just not your fingers.
Just not your fingers, because you're going to have fun. And if you're not inky, you're not having fun. All right, so let's dive right in. In terms of paper, I am using, it's over here. For the most part, I am just using a smooth white 80-pound cardstock. I have a bin of white cardstock that I don't know who the manufacturer is. Any white, smooth paper. And you know what? It doesn't even have to be white. You could use color if you want as well. But I'm going to stick with white to really showcase what these techniques can do. Let me just make sure I've got everything handy that I need. So we're just going to start off with the basics. When you look at an embossing folder, And again, I'm probably not going to be able to show it super well on the camera, but when you look at pretty much any embossing folder, you are going to notice that there are two sides. There is one side that I'm going to call the mountain side, and that means that the pattern is poking up from the surface. Maybe.
That's okay, keep going.
Yeah, I'm just going to switch to a different folder. And then you've got your valley side. So this is my mountain side. Again, you won't be able to tell until I actually do things. And then your valley side is a little bit flatter, and that's where all the shapes and patterns are pushed down into the plastic. So when you go and you put your paper in, you put your folder through your machine, the pressure is going to push those two patterns together to create your embossed or debossed pattern on your paper. But we're going to take it to the next level. So I'm going to start with the mountain side and show you a technique. Then I will also do it on the valley side. And I'm going to use a dark ink just to make sure everything is showing up. Other things you want to have handy while you're doing this is baby wipes, paper towel, clean up tools, just to give you things a quick wipe. And that again is where having a water-based ink is so much easier. So I'm using Price Ribbon Distress ink. I will get into oxides in a little bit, but this is just straight distress ink. I'm using a big pad. You can use little pads. This is just going to give you faster, better coverage. That's really the only reason why I chose my big ones. So this is my mountainside, and I'm just going to drag my ink pad right along the surface. Now try to be careful you don't press too hard. You don't want it in these little debossed areas. You just want to push along the surface. And then I'm going to flip it around because I want to put my paper on the non-inky side. I'm just going to center it. You don't want it too close to the top where it's going to have trouble going through the machine. I'm going to close this over. I've got my sandwich all ready to go. So all I have to do is this, and I'm going to crank it through my machine.
Presto, mango.
Presto, magico. As long as I get my plates straight here in my machine. Crankety crank. So this is what it looks like when you have put your ink on the mountain side of your paper. Now again, I've got some little areas here where because I wasn't careful putting the ink on, but what this has done is it's taken that mountain pattern and pushed it into the paper along with the ink to create this really cool pattern.
I wonder if this is how they got the Better Press idea.
It's a very similar principle to the Better Press. Obviously, the Better Press using metal instead of plastic is going to give you much better images, but it is a very similar pressing letterpress concept, I guess is the best way to say it. All right, so that was number one. That was putting ink on the mountain side. Let me grab a baby wipe. I'm going to clean this off. And you do really want to make sure that you get your folder clean, especially if you are going to change colors. See, I'm already getting it all over my desktop. It's all good. That's what it's there for. That's what those mess mats are for. And again, the nice thing about these being water-based is when you're done, you can just go and run these under the tap. I do recommend the scrubby soap to get in some of the detailed areas, but just running it under the tap, having a paper towel and a cloth handy is always useful.
Chantel liked the extra smudges. She said it gives it more of a stressed look.
Well, there you go. There you go. It's well used. All right, so now I have the valley side. I'm going to do the exact same thing. Don't press too hard. So this one is going to be harder to get in those little areas. Cover your area and flip.
How long do you have before the ink dries?
How long do I have before the ink dries? A little bit of time. You don't have to necessarily rush. And again, because these are water-based inks, if you let it dry, you can just give it a little spritz with some water to reactivate the ink. And I'm actually going to show you a technique with that next. But let's go in. Let's do this first. So Closing it like this, I'm already seeing that I did a little finger smudge, but you're going to get the concept. You're going to get the idea. Let's load up my plates. And here we go. Through the machine, my little workhorse, my Platinum 6.
Demos are never perfect.
Demos are never perfect. Nope. Watching on camera or creating on camera, never perfect. But here you go. The concept is there. So this is putting ink on the mountainside. This is basically giving you the opposite because we put the ink on the valley side. Both really awesome concepts, really cool to play with. But I think you can see, because I was doing that dragging motion, you can see why on something that has more pointed edges, has more of a rough surface, you don't want to be dragging your ink pad because you're going to tear up that ink pad. And I definitely wouldn't want you to damage your ink pad. This is supposed to be fun, not costly. All right, so that is mountain and valley. Those are the basics. Those are the basics. You drag your ink pad, you put your paper in, and I'm not sure if I articulated this, but the reason why I put the paper on the non-ink side is that way when you close it, you know everything's already in place. If you were to put the paper down on the ink side, if it slips, you've just got a great big smudge. All right, did I get that all? And I've got a little bit over here. Always good to have that white paper underneath here because that tells you where the ink still is. I think, oh, I got a little smudge here. All right, so here's the next thing. And I'm going to continue to work on the valley side just because I think it's going to give us more coverage. And I'm going to show you a couple more techniques. So here we just did one color. I am now going to switch to pink brush inks just to show you that it also works with a non-water reactive technique or non-water reactive ink. And all I'm going to do this time, let's go this way. I'm going to take my lightest color and I'm going to go here at the top. Then I'm going to go with my next lightest color, come here in the middle. And then I'm going to go in with my darkest color here at the bottom. And flip. Now here I've got the ink. So because I put the ink closer to the bottom, I want to make sure that I put my paper closer to the bottom so I do get all three colors that I've inked on here. And close it down. Through the machine. Except my plates are being sticky. Good old static in this dry weather. Here we go.
Okay, snow is coming on Thursday.
Uh-oh, did you guys hear that? Do we need to give Matt the bleep? He just said the S word.
Oh, Chris was saying all kinds of times.
No S words in this house and no F words, aka flurries. So here you've got that tricolor. So you don't have to stick with one color. You can do three colors. Now, part of the reason why you've got this beading is because it is fighting against the plastic. The Distress ink worked a little bit better, but I also kind of like that look. Another thing and I'll show you how if you don't like that look, if you want something smoother, but you're using pink brush, that'll be my next one.
Why did it do that with the pink brush inks, but not the Distress ink?
Because it's a slightly different kind of ink.
Oh.
So pretty though, so pretty. All right, and you need a clean baby wipe. Let's clean this off. I've had a bad habit tonight of trying to clean my folders right on top of my plates, but I don't want to get ink on my plates, so it's always best to put your plates away.
I wonder your fingers are covered in ink.
Yes. This is not, as much as ink can be a cleaner medium, this is not one of those situations. but it is just ink. So it's not paste. It's not.
You're gonna give Chris ideas.
Oh, well, Chris is going to want all my baby wipes. I know that.
You know how she likes to play with ink.
Yep. All right, so this is all cleaned up. You know what? For fun, I'm going to let this dry and I'm going to switch to a different folder. Just because I can. All right, so that one was called, this one that we were just using with the circles was called Geo Screen. The next one I'm going to switch to is called Optical Arches. And
it's like rainbows.
It does kind of look like rainbows, but you could do it upside down like mermaid scales as well. Again, I'm going to work on the valley side. So option number 2, if you are doing a tricolor, is I'm going to, same idea, I'm going to do my light, my medium, and my dark.
You like to do stuff in 3s, don't you?
3s are a designer's dream. It's what your brain processes. Now, what I'm going to do this time, instead of just leaving with ink, I've got my spray bottle. Be very, very minimal with the spray. You do not want too much water. And if necessary, use a watercolor paper as opposed to the regular paper if you do get too much water off. I'm just going to do one. Whoops. There we go. I probably already got too much water on here. I just refilled my water and my spray bottle.
Oops.
All right, so let's do this.
Yeah,
this one you do have to move a little bit faster. Drop it down, but already you can see magic happening here. And get everything lined up and crank it through.
Yeah, these just for like card bases?
These would be for card bases. I mean, you could very easily just put a sentiment on here and call it done. It's just creating some really fun backgrounds. And see, you can see here how because we've spritzed it with the water, it has softened out those water or those ink beads into something a little bit more seamless, I guess, for lack of a better term.
It'd be interesting to see the water spritz on the distress or the oxide. Oh, sorry.
You'd think Matt saw me doing my prep. He's starting to steal my thunder here.
I was doing other things.
It's all good. It's all good. So I don't know if you heard his question. He's like, well, what happens if you do water on the distress ink or on the distress oxide? Well, is that next on my list? Not quite next on my list, but actually, yeah, it is next on my list. All right, you know what? Let's just get the most of this down. Matt's gonna go dump it in the sink.
Do I just rinse it off?
Yeah, or just put it in the sink for right now. All right, I'm gonna move on to the diamond plaid. So this is an oldie but a goodie. Instead of dragging, so I'm gonna switch now. So we tried the distress ink, we tried the pink fresh ink. I am now going to switch to distress oxide. And I've pulled out a bunch of colors here because I wasn't too sure what I was going to play with, but I think I'm going to go with Twisted Citron, Picked Raspberry, Peacock Feather, and Wilted Violet. And this time, instead of dragging, I'm going to apply the ink to the embossing folder using foam blenders. And this is super fun. This is super fun. You can do this to either side. Again, I like the impact of doing it on the valley side.
So you're not using my mastics?
No, I'm not using a mask.
My feelings are hurt.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Peacock Feather and my blending foam. Just ink it up, and I'm just going to color some little circle areas here. This ink under here keeps distracting me. I keep thinking there's stuff on my folder. No, I don't need a clean one. So I'm just doing little dots of color here, And now I'm going to switch colors. So that was the peacock feather. Let's do picked raspberry next. Originally on my practice one, I tried the saltwater taffy, but I found that that pink was very faint. So I'm going to switch to picked raspberry. Just shoop, shoop, filling in some of the gaps. There we go.
Gotta leave room for the other ones.
Always room for the other ones. It's all good. So next is twisted citron. And let's fill in some holes here. Twisted citron is probably one of my two favorite distress inks or distress colors. Okay, and let's do our wilted violet in those last remaining places.
Valerie's asking the same question I did. What is the timeline before your ink starts to dry?
I would not go and walk away and have a half-hour phone conversation or play, watch a TV program or anything, but you don't have to move so fast that you're racing your way through. And see, I've already got quite a bit of coverage here, and my piece of paper is not that big. So yeah, you've got a little bit of playtime. I don't have an exact timeline as to how fast you can move. You could just put your paper in right now and get the ink transferred. But then to answer Matt's question, I'm going to just do a little bit of 3 little spritzes just to get that ink running together. And I've got my paper.
Trick's getting the paper in the right spot.
And there we go. Because we're using water-based ink, and you will have a little bit more playtime using distress or distress oxide because you can reactivate those with water. So if you are at all worried, okay, what am I doing wrong? There we go. And presto. How cool is that? Now, if you want that to run even more, you can also spritz it after the fact and let the colors run and play. And it's kind of neat to see where the water, again, I didn't use a ton of water here, but it's kind of neat to see where it all plays and gathers in the ridges of that embossing folder. So I really went to town on those polka dots. You could use your foam blender to do stripes. You can do any number of things with that those foam blenders, but that's just a different way to apply your ink. All right. Next up is.
Do I need to watch that one now?
It's fine. I can, because they're water reactive inks. Even if we let it sit for 5 or 10 minutes while we finish up this video, we should be able to wash it no problem.
I didn't know if you were using it again.
No, I'm going to use the last one. And this, the end, is where your scrubby soap can really come into play. It's got this really gentle scrubber, all natural soap that can really get in and get all those little nooks and crannies to clean out your embossing folder. All right, so last but not least, I am going to, this is my last embossing folder. This one is called Columns. And this time I am actually going to use watercolor paper instead of, just that plain white cardstock. One side is textured, one side is smooth. It's all going to get textured, so it really doesn't matter too much which direction you put it in. I'm going to put my textured side, so I've got my valley side here in front of me. I'm going to put my textured side face down on the valley side and then close over with the mountain side. With this one having all of those straight lines, this is one where you do want to be pretty careful about being straight in your folder. And you're right, this time I have not used any ink yet.
I didn't say anything.
No ink yet. I am just embossing the paper with the embossing folder. Let me get these inks out of the way or I'm going to have them go flying. This is where. All right, so now I've got my embossed panel. You can see that beautiful pattern. Well, it could be either A, you didn't think of using ink before you did this, or you forgot, or, you know, maybe this is the technique you're going for. So I've got my watercolor paper. I'm going back to my distress ink. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this on the paper. Like so. And you could just leave it like this. This is another way to just kind of get that surface detail really popping out. But we're going to take it to the next level. We're going to take our spray bottle. Look at that. This is where it gets really cool, that the ink and the water is all running in all these little crevices. And looks like I've got a dry spot up here. And again, it really just does some cool stuff. This is one of my favorite things about playing with water and ink is seeing where the color runs, where it stays, how it creates that really cool background. And then if you want, when you're done and when it's dry, do I have a dry one? Mine dry back here. So this is one I did earlier today. It's pretty dry, but what you can do is take some stencil butter, take some gilding wax. What stencil butters do I have?
That first thing you did is almost like one of those pictures they show you if you go to like a psychiatrist's office. What do you see?
What do you see in the patterns? I'm gonna dig out here. You know what would look really cool with the blue is the copper. I can get it out of my little case. There we go. And here, let me dig out. Problem is my matchsticks all have inky foams. Here's a little matchstick. A little matchstick and a little foam. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you could use the foam blenders with the.
Yep.
Even in a room that's fully organized, still
Okay.
takes.
So I'm just taking out a little bit of my stencil butter here. And my blending tool. Just get a little bit of stencil butter on your blending tool and then really lightly, oops, really lightly.
Working?
Yep. You can see how that's just bringing out those raised surfaces. And this is where if you have a 3D embossing folder, that surface is going to be raised that much more. But look at how that's all coming up. I don't know if it looks pretty awesome in person, I got to tell you. There we go. So anyways, my homework assignment for you is to get out some of your embossing folders, get out some of your inks, get out some of your paper, and make some backgrounds. Here we go.
And to share their creations in the
Share
inner
your
circle.
creations in the inner circle. Tell us what your favorite embossing folders are. I don't know that I stopped to breathe, so were there any questions before I close things down for the evening?
Not really, no.
No, everybody's good. Everybody's inspired. Figure out your favorite color combinations. And remember, this is just ink and paper, and you can just have so much fun with it. There, that was that arches one. Here I did a green combination. I was also playing with the oranges. This would make a beautiful, throw some leaves on there. You've got a beautiful fall background. Um, Valentine's Day is tomorrow, so get out your reds, your pinks, your purples, and just have fun.
Card maker JT wants to know, how do you join the inner circle on Facebook?
How do you join the inner circle? So what I'll do is I'll go back and I will reply to your comment, and I'll put the link into the comments. Here is a private Facebook group for our crafting community. It's a great place where you can share ideas, ask questions, get ideas, all of that good stuff. And we'd love to see what you make. JT, I think you're already in the group, but maybe you haven't seen us for a while. But I will put that link into the comments when we are done here. One thing to note before I sign off, we had originally planned to do a What's New tomorrow night, and then Matt, the gentleman that he is, has invited me out for dinner for Valentine's Day. So what we're going to do instead, and I still have to go and change the event on Facebook here, as well as on YouTube, but we're going to do a store tour at some point tomorrow morning. My goal is going to be to aim for 10:30, but when you're in the store, anything can happen. So I will schedule it for 10:30 tomorrow morning. We do have a bit of an announcement. We do have some new stuff to show you. We'll give you a reminder of some of the recently new, and then everybody can go and enjoy their Valentine's for tomorrow evening. Until then, I look forward to seeing what you create and wish you a happy rest of your week. Good night, everyone.